Imagine an iron house without windows, absolutely indestructible, with many people fast asleep inside, who will soon die of suffocation. But since they will die in their sleep, they will not feel the pain of death. Now, if you cry aloud to wake a few of the lighter sleepers, making those unfortunate suffer the agony of irrevocable death, do you think you are doing them a good turn? Uh, but if I feel awake, you can say there is no hope of destroying the iron house. That's what Lu Xun says in the preface to Nahon, or Call to Arms. Maybe the iron house is a reference to the traditional reality in China. Welcome to Strixcast, a podcast where we talk about literature and art in general. And today we talk about modernism in China, about Chen Hengzhe and Lu Xun. We talk about linguistical tradition, cannibalism, and pharmacy, the traditional Chinese medicine. We're discussing One Day by Chen Hengzhe and A Madman's Diary by Lu Xun. The traditional lingua franca in the Western Asia, the vast majority of the countries in Western Asia was classical Chinese, the lingua franca in the sense of literature and diplomacy. So everything is written in classical Chinese. But that's a not inclusive language because the ordinary people, the mass of population didn't know that language. In that period, people talked in vernacular languages. They talked in a lot of different dialects from Chinese. Chinese has a lot of dialects, but today they are seen as isolated languages, such as Mandarin Chinese. If you recall the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, it was written in a vernacular language, the Florentine, which preceded Italian. So Italian came from Florentine. Alighieri was from Florence. And Florence was like the center of the world in 14th century. And their lingua franca, which lasted until the 18th century, was classical Latin. But in a revolutionary act, Dante wrote in a vernacular language. And Latin lasted a little, like in the 19th century, Royal Society was Regia Societa. So in Chinese modernism, we want literary democracy. We want everyone to be able to read literature. So in 1960, Hu Xi did propose a reform in the language, in vernacular language, in literature, to the Chinese students in United States. But nobody was with him except by Chen Hengzhe, which later was called by Hu Xi as the earliest revolutionary comrade, something like that. So talking about Chen Hengzhe, she was with Hu Xi. So in 1917, she wrote One Day. And One Day is fully written in a vernacular language. In Wikipedia, we just have like 3 languages. about her. If you see Lu Xun's page, you see that he has more than 140 translated languages. So I'll try to translate it for Portuguese. I'll talk about later in another episode if it was possible. So we have nothing of her translated to English nor to Portuguese. What we have was a translation made in the book Writing Women in Modern China, an anthology of women's literature from the early 20th century. So I can't buy it. Here in Brazil, in Amazon, it costs like R$238 plus R$100 of VAT of delivery tax. In dollar, it's maybe like something about $70 or $80, something like that. I don't know. So that's a realist piece. That's a really short story. We're here about ordinary people in ordinary places, with ordinary conversations. We don't have heroes here. We don't have a lot of different feelings, profound and deep feelings, such in Romanticism. Here we have realistic narrative. So one day is about a day in the life of a few women students at an American college. We can think about Chen Hengzhe's life because she studied in American college, but we don't have here in this narrative currents. We don't have a structure. The narrative goes on like a lot of different dialogues coming on. We have a conversation here, and we have another there, and we have another. So we just see the time by the sign-offs, the school sign-offs. The first one of the day, the breakfast one, and go to bed one. We don't have a description of the scenes, of the places, just dialogues. And I found in some essays particles of the short story, and I read it. And here I go. The clock reads 7:50, and suddenly it wakes up, looking at the clock. Oh, I've only got 10 minutes. She jumps out of the bed and gives Bertha a push. Hurry up and get up. Hurry and get up. The breakfast bell has been ringing forever. And hurries to wash up and comb her hair, and then flies down the stairs. Margie. I knew somebody was sure to come late, so I asked for another breakfast in advance. You're welcome to have it, another student. And so what happened then, Anna? Oh, Eunice has news again. Eunice. All right, last night a few students from the dormitories came to visit her friend. Emily laughs. How amusing. And it was a translation made by Dooley and Torgerson in 1998. So, man, that's a lot of things happening there. There's no structure. First we were hearing Margie, then we're hearing Anna, and another student, and Eunice, and Emily. So there are a lot of different things. And I made a translation of it to Portuguese. You can see in the Portuguese version of that podcast. And I have another particle taken from the Experience of Modernity. That's a book too. Dong, 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 7 o'clock. In bed and stretches and necks. Bertha, what time is it? Bertha replies, sleepy. Do you hear the bell ringing? Anna falls back asleep without answering. Bertha falls asleep again too. Dong, 10:30. Bertha and Anna are still not awake. So that's very funny. I would like to read it, but I can't. That's something sad, but that's okay. In another Chen Hengzhe, works, we have the modernism in autobiographies. We have the modernization of autobiographies. In China, it's very common that we find here and there some historical autobiographies. So they have extensive genealogical data. But those texts were like about social status, about important people from important families and important positions and good names, something like that. So a lot of facts, a lot of data. But the May 4th writers, which was a modern group, a youth modern group in China, they would say that like data and facts don't have the power to show the interior of an individual. They don't have the capacity to show your essence, your internal essence. They just show the visible reality, like your family, your name, your position, but nothing beyond that. The thing here is not about facts. It's not about data. The first episode in Strixcast was about Dom Casmurro, Machado de Assis' work. It's an autobiography, but it's fictional. It's not real. But that's not the fact here. That's not the point here. The thing is, why is it written and how is it written? That's the point here. That's the thing with modern autobiographies. They have a method, the figuration method, a way to show, to represent things by graphic elements or linguistic elements or plastic elements, etc. The thing here is taking out the self from obscurity, the relation the individual has in his society. So we're talking about ordinary people, no heroes here, no personages that feel very deeply emotions. We're talking about oppressed people by their reality, victimized people, people that don't have place in the society, people without power. So the thing with modernism is like questioning the common sense, like our way to govern, our canonic governmental. Is it right? Is it right just because people do it? Is that right just because people are used to do it for a long time? So in that context, in 1918, Lu Xun publishes a Madman's diary. People often say that Lu Xun first wrote the vernacular texts. He was the first to publish a vernacular text. But that's not true. 1 year before, Chen Hengzhe publishes one day. So he is thought to be the Chinese modernism father. But that's not the fact here. That's not true. Where's the mother? Here in Brazil, we have a free edition of that short story from Editora Carambaia. I can attach that link in description. Okay. So another thing about autobiographies before we start talking about the Madman's diary. May 4th writers, modern writers, introduced the diary as a form of autobiography. So it's very popular. And in a Madman's Diary is an autobiographical account in a diary. So the prologue in that work is written in classical Chinese, just the prologue. It's very short. We can see the intrinsical differences between the prologue and the story, because I don't know classical Chinese and I don't know vernacular Chinese. I don't know those languages. I just read that text in a translation which was made by Chinese people to English. So we lose something in the path, if you will, but that's okay. In the prologue, we'll hear about a man which studied in high school with two brothers, and maybe he's a doctor, a physician, and he's coming back to his land, and he heard that one of those brothers was ill. He was sick, so he went to see him. And when he got in their home, the other brother just said, "Oh, he's okay now. He's recovered." But he wrote a diary in his convalescence period, in his mad period. So take this and you can read. And the narrator just says, "Okay, I'm a physician and I'm doing a medical study, a medical research." So he took some pieces of the diary and put in that book so we can read it. And something which is very interesting in that account is that we have not dates. So in a diary, you need to put the dates there. You don't need, but it's very common. It's common sense. That's so funny. So the narrator says, I know that those accounts were not written in the same day without stopping, because the ink have a different color. The narration changes a little in aspect here and there, so we know the differences in days by that the ink color and the narrative type of writing. I don't know, the style. So we have not specified data in that diary, and it starts with the diarist saying, "A dog, the child house dog, looked at me twice, and I have reason to fear." So in the next day, this morning, when I went out cautiously, Mr. Child had a strange look in his eyes, as if he were afraid of me, as if he wanted to murder me. There were 7 or 8 others who discussed me in a whisper, and they were afraid of me, of my seeing them. All the people I passed were like that. The fiercest among them grinned at me, whereupon I shivered from head to foot, knowing that their preparations were complete. And he even tell us about his experience with a group of children, and he says, "A group of children in front were also discussing me, and the look in their eyes was just like that in Mr. Child's." And he's like, and he starts to think, "Man, what do I have with them? What grudge do I have with Mr. Chow for him to look me that way?" And he recalls 20 years ago that he trod in Mr. Q's account sheets. And he says, "Okay, but Mr. Chow doesn't know Mr. Q. And how to explain that?" And he just thinks I don't know, maybe Mr. Q sent a letter or sent something to tell it to him so he can avenge him for that fraud. And he starts to think about the children, like in the road. Why? And he says, okay, their parents. They learned this from their parents. So everyone is conspiring against him. And he recalls a day he was in the street and he saw a mother spank her son and say, "Little devil, I'd like to bite several mouthfuls out of you to work off my feelings." Yet, all the time she looked at me. So can you see that conspiracy against him? Everyone is against him. And another day, he recalls that a tenant of them from Wolf Club Village came to report failure of the crops to the elder brother. And he says, like, a notorious man in the village was beaten to death. And he says, like, people took out his heart and his liver and fried it in oil and ate it. And like, it was just a means to increase their courage. And when the narrator just interrupt them, the tenant and the brother stared at him with that same look, with that frightened look, that murderous look. Just as Mr. Chow's one, the children's one, people outside, the mother, and he just realizes, the eater of human flesh is my elder brother. So he realizes that people want to eat him. Yeah, people want to eat him. So here we're talking about pharmacy, okay? So listen then. These few days I have been thinking again. Suppose that old man were not an executioner in disguise, but a real doctor. He would be nonetheless an eater of human flesh. In that book of herbs, written by his predecessor, Lu Xun, it is clearly stated that man's flesh can be boiled and eaten. So he can still say that he does not eat man. So it's not that way. He makes some mistakes in his narrative, like in traditional stories in China. So Lu Xun wrote Materia Medica, like texts about medicine, like traditional Chinese medicine. And we have a branch of it derived from human body. A pharmaceutical study in human body. And Lu Xun lists at least 35 human drugs. Yes, like nails, salive, urine, feces. I don't know. You can think a lot of things about it. And the cannibal thing that he writes about is the malfied man. Or if you want, Mummy Kent. The thing here is, you're an old man or woman, and you're in the end of your life, and you know it, and you want to do something good for society, for people. So you stop eating anything but honey, and you will die, and you die just with honey inside of you. So in your tongue, I don't know, you're coughing. So in your coughing, you are imbued with honey. You are all covered with honey. And 100 years later, people would take your body and take pieces of it and sell it as a medicine. Yeah, that's something which he says. And we have another part in the text where a man, a criminal, is killed in the city, and something extraordinary happens. Consumptive soaked a piece of bread in his blood and sucked it. Okay, Chen Hengzhe, I don't know, said in a traditional text that eating human flesh can cure focus of tuberculosis infections. And here, consumption is tuberculosis because people are consumed by the illness. They become very tight. They lost fat and mass. So a consumptive is someone who is infected with tuberculosis. And an interesting fact is that at least or around 1.7 billion people have the tuberculosis bacillus. But it's called, I don't know the term for it in English. In Portuguese, it's like tuberculose latente, like latent. I don't know. It's a tuberculosis that that is calm, that is controlled. You have no symptoms. But we have something called Bacillus calmette guérin, the BCG or BCG vaccine. So babies take that vaccine against tuberculosis. And okay, the consumptive eating bread with blood, I don't know, maybe it's pharmaceutical. I don't know, I can't say. But we have in that story, that pharmaceutical study in human body. The fact here is that our narrator thinks that everyone wants to eat him, but they don't want to kill him. They would feel bad for it. So the thing here is that they want him to kill himself. And then they may eat him. And he points that, man, stop being cannibal. You are cannibal, but people around you are also cannibal. So as you can eat me, they can eat you, and you can eat them. So that's something strange. So you can take a lot of conclusions. You can take a lot of understandings of the story. I'm not here to talk about it, but you can think about like our society, our traditional society is eating each other. Our traditional society doesn't allow people to have access to literature. I don't know. And later, the dynasty fell to earth and they had a republic. And that's the start of modernism in China. That desire of revolution in language, that linguistic revolution, that getting away from the tradition, from old tradition, from common sense. And please read it. It's very short. It's very interesting. And here in Strixcast, we like to talk about different people, different culture, different ways of thinking. We like to talk about men and male and female literature. So that's why today we talk about Chen Hengzhe, and the next episode, because it's October, it's next Halloween, we're talking about horror. So we'll have female literature. We'll discuss Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and you're welcome to be here next week. Thank you for hearing me. Until now, and bye.